interesting instrument for a reason. I mean, electric violin is nothing to play around with. Why did you choose that for yourself? Like, what drew you to that instrument? You wanted to learn it, play it, and make something out of it.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like this evolution of started with classical when I was in diapers, and then kind of was more interested in having fun with the instrument. You know, with classical, it requires a lot of discipline. A lot of it's like kind of like doing your homework. You know, your math homework or your chemistry work or whatever. It's sort of the equivalent in terms of the nuances of everything, of the runs, and I was looking for a little bit more leeway for creativity. So I ventured into electric violin land, which is sort of synonymous with, basically works with playing along with a band, with on a loud stage with DJs, with other musicians, other instruments, with a PA system, that type of thing. So
you found like your own gravitational pull towards it. You know, you touched base on like classical music. I mean, I kind of feel the exact same way. I feel like there's genres of music that you gravitate towards really well, and then there's ones where you're like, I don't know. I think like I can do better if I was doing something else. You feel me?
Are you saying playing a different genre?
Yeah, like in regards to like when you're playing music, because I know like I play guitar. Mm-hmm. And I sometimes get fascinated by other genres of playing guitar. You know, like for example, of how like picketing is very popular in country and blues sound. You know, on how like fast repercussions are very popular in punk, heavy metal, and hard rock. Those type of elements, and adding it into like your music palette and when you're making.
Yeah, I'm always looking to explore different ways of making the violin fit into music. I find that certain genres work better than others. You know, EDM, rock, pop, hip hop, obviously classical, cinematic type music. Those are great for violin. But within the context of rock, I don't know how well it fits into like alternative, for instance. You know, I wasn't like jamming along to music in the 80s and 90s, music on the radio, because a lot of it was all alternative. Music that's kind of current, more popular today in the top 40s tends to work a lot better with the electric violin. That being said, also the tones, you know, if you have an electric as opposed to an acoustic, there's more versatility in the tones. So I can make it sound like an electric guitar, which would fit really well into like, you know, I don't know, Metallica song, whereas violin doesn't as much. So
it's all like finding your element, I guess, like from what I'm hearing, from what you're saying. And I like that. I like when, you know, you're an instrumentalist and you're playing an instrument and like you kind of have to accept that certain things just don't work. You know, certain things you can try and are really great, but on other avenues are just things that just don't work, period. I mean, like for yourself, I mean, with your music career and with all of the time that you spent, what if you could pick something out of your experience playing electric violin? What is like the one experience that you regret the most?
Regret
the most. I'm just curious. Yeah.
What experience do I regret the most of out of playing the violin?
And like performing, like, and why?
Well, this is an easy one actually. Dropping my bow on stage in front of 700 people. This is when I was college age, probably around like 19. And the guy who was like the MC stepped back on my $2,000 bow and cracked it. And yeah, that was definitely something I regret, without a doubt.
What do you feel like you learned out of that experience?
Don't ever leave your bow out of the case. It should either be in your hand or in the freaking case. I have not made that. I'm just really anal about where I put my instrument. And it's not. I'm not like an OCD type of person. I'm kind of the opposite. But when it comes to that, I just think, okay, do I want this to happen again? And that's enough of a reminder. I can't keep buying $2,000 bows.
No. I
Yeah.
mean, eventually, Visa will be like, sir, we have a little bit of a problem with the card. There's been multiple purchases of violin bows
Yeah.
at random.
Yeah, that's right.
I find that also, like, personally, I find that to be one of the hardest things for me playing instruments is just the fact of how expensive things are. Yeah, I know there are like cheaper alternatives. What do you gravitate towards more, like in regards to equipment? Do you try to always get like high quality things, or you don't really? Yeah,
Well, I mean, I'm playing 200 events a year. Plus, I'm doing live stream performances. I'm constantly playing, so it isn't worth it for me to invest in half-ass equipment for that obvious reason.
of course. Yeah, it makes
like,
sense.
And when Murphy's Law, like if you don't have everything perfectly aligned, the chances are greater that something wrong is going to happen, especially when the stakes are so high. So when it's like, when you're in front of 1,000 people, that's when something's going to go wrong. Like somebody's like the sound guy's going to space out or a cable's going to crack. Like when you're most likely in a situation where you can be embarrassed, that's when things are going to go wrong. So I just try to give myself the edge and buy the best equipment I can. Megami cables, the preamps, the strings are top notch. I have a backup violin, double violin case just in case something pops, cracks.
Damn.
So yeah, I can't tell you.
Well equipped, my dude. Like he's got a backup violin. Can you imagine having a guy coming up on stage, breaks the guitar, and is like, "Hey, Morty, grab me the other guitar from the."
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was was in a Greater Buffalo Youth Orchestra.
Yeah.
When I was a kid. We all used to kind of laugh because next to the conductor was a whole bag of. He had a temper, but next to the conductor was a whole bag of batons. So he's like he got really upset once at the whole orchestra. He cracked it. He cracked the baton, and he looks at it, it's broken half. People are kind of smirking. Throws it away. Because it is his bag. I don't remember, but that was one of the most memorable experiences for me.
No, and I totally like understand that to the fullest. I mean, I grew up in upstate New York, and I grew up around Italians.
No way. How far upstate?
I grew up like we call it upstate, but we border Jersey. So I grew up in Rockland County, and when I was growing up as a kid, it wasn't as like populated as it is now. It used to be. This is crazy for a lot of people, but like 20 years ago, not even like 15 years ago, when you left New York City and went to the other side of the Hudson, and like this is even for like people that are going to concerts, because people used to come out to Rockland and go to concerts, in those open stadiums, and people, they would have like events and stuff. I remember it was rural. There was tons of trees, you had tons of like little houses here and there, and just being in that environment, having like a stage and just like this massive field with like 500 people there, like kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Outside of the city. Can you imagine that? Like, you live in Manhattan, you're like, fuck this shit. I want to get out of here.
I lived in Manhattan for 10 years, and that's all I could think of. So I was in the Heights.
Oh, damn. Which side? Which side were you, Usher? Which
Both
side?
sides. The right, middle, and left. We're talking 10 years. Like I was going from university, and then, but actually where I met my wife on the west side. So
Aww.
Good times. Yeah.
Upper West Side Story, honey.
Well,
hope it didn't end as bad as the movie, but yeah.
Well, yeah. Right. Well, so far it's a pretty good tale, over 15 years, but we got to the burbs. So
you're in New York currently?
I am, Long Island, but I'm from upstate New York, like Buffalo. So
okay.
When you say upstate, I'm like, oh, how far upstate?
You know what's so funny? People from Rochester, this is so hilarious. The only people from Rochester, whenever I tell them I'm a New Yorker, they give you that look. They're like, oh, what type of New Yorker are you? Where do you live? And I'm like, I grew up in Rockland County. They're like, oh, you're not New Yorker. You're from New Jersey. We're real New Yorkers. And I'm just like, I didn't have to deal with 15 inches of snow. I dealt with 6. So I'm going to deal with my 6,
Yeah. The Great Lakes.
Do you feel in many ways that you as an artist really cultivated and grew because of the like being in New York, being around like that environment and your experiences, or you
Being
don't
in
feel that?
Manhattan?
Yeah, especially. I mean, you're constantly surrounded by culture, Broadway.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I've spent years playing with Broadway musicians, with people that have gone on tour, like Tony Bennett and like Frank Sinatra, a lot of big jazz performers. I mean, it literally made my career. Like, I don't think I would be a professional musician if I was living anywhere else other than New York, possibly LA, maybe Florida, but New York is like the hub. So, it literally made my career. Like, I wouldn't have played all those major venues had I not had all these connections and over the last 2 decades. So
There's nothing like the artist scene in New York. It's I mean, I live here out in Florida, and no offense to the artists out here, like they're super incredible and super talented, but there's a whole different line in regards to the type of hustle, the type of environment you have to put yourself in. I if you want to talk about this, I'd love to hear like your experience coming up into the scene and creating your career. Just the amount of work and presence I feel that you need to be, especially in the art scene in New York, is definitely presence. I feel like you definitely need to be present. Otherwise, you get lost.
you're saying stage presence, or you're talking about just like present, physically present?
If you're an artist that shows up at the same fucking club, you know what I'm talking about. The same fucking club in Lower East Side every single Saturday at 6 p.m. for 10 years. That's all you do. You just go to the same place.
I would
That's
probably lose my mind.
Yeah, I mean, you're great. You're a regular, and people know who you are. But like, what kind of career is that? You're not
I
making
can't
those
imagine
kind
us
of
paying the bills.
exactly right.
And like, yeah, I know a lot of people do that, kind of waiting for like a label to come along and pick them up. It's kind of like winning the lottery. But I, yeah, I started like, I very much had a practical mentality in terms of. Let me just lower my volume a little bit. I don't know if I'm like overdriving.
A little bit.
Yeah, sorry about that. I looked at the label here.
We jiving. We good, bro.
Okay, cool. Check 1 2. There we go. What was I saying? Yeah, I mean, I had a very much a practical minded approach to music, because I was really not. I wasn't there for music. I was there to get a degree and to you know find a way to pay the bills and have like a stable job, stable career. Music sort of like found me, and it was just paying the bills for me throughout college. So, and then I just sort of made it a full-time career. But yeah, I've been hustling since day one. I just starting physically hustling. Forget about even the schedule, but just like schlepping around the MTA and taking mass transit everywhere. I didn't have a car for like the first seven years, so I'm like running around with my equipment and amps and rolling up and down, going up and down Broadway, and these stairs, endless stairs, staircases at like 1 a.m. Coming back from really late gigs. I was doing all that stuff just it was paying the bills. So I didn't have a choice, because it's not like I had another option. I didn't have people filling my bank
So
account.
it found. So what you're saying is, it found you. You're the type of artist where the the artist in yourself found you, not the other way around.
I was proactive about getting the gigs, but it found me in the sense that like the opportunities came pretty quickly on my way because of just unique skills that I had, like the club date scene, the wedding, corporate events, the types of stuff like that. And people saw that I knew.
All about the artist. That is the whole purpose of this podcast, period. And you have a really valuable tool. You can share this with artists, people that are creative, someone that can enjoy this podcast and really enjoy the experience of Lost in the Groove. So, with that, let's jump back to today's episode, shall we?
Sight read, that type of stuff, and I had the
I've
equipment.
heard
So
I've heard some of your playing. You have a very unique way of how you play electric violin. I've heard
Thank you.
other, like, really famous people that have done that too, but I like the way that you do it. It's not too heavy, it's not too strong. If I listen to your music enough and I personally feel this, and somebody just started playing your music at random, I could, I think in a matter of a few seconds, I can pick up that it's you. You have that
That,
type of sound that's quite unique. So it makes sense. It 100% makes sense that when you get into this, you have these opportunities that are coming to you. How
well,
was
that's
that?
really
How was that for you, though? I mean, besides the stress and the struggle of pulling things up 1 a.m. in the morning, just being there.
well. First of all, thank you. That's really nice of you to say. How was so? Yeah. Aside from the stress, there were a lot of nights where I just like I felt like, okay, this is the life. Like this is this is what I'd like to spend my time doing instead of like getting a degree. But I was just trying to be practical and get the degree. But just being on stage and jamming out and having a good time. But after like 10 years of doing that stuff, it actually gets a little bit tiring. And then I kind of look for other things to do. Like, what's like, is this it? Like, am I going to be playing the same venues, playing with the same musicians every night? Like, I just felt like I needed something else. But as far as the stress of saying beyond of just like schlepping back and forth, obviously I needed a car. But even once I got a car, I needed like a little bit of a pay increase. So, and then what was bugging me the most was that I was playing other people's music. I think a true artist really needs to be creative in their own way instead of being
Hmm.
told like, okay, just even beyond improvisation. I guess I just sort of felt the need to just keep pushing the envelope until I found truly myself. And like the release of Neon Dreams, which kind of marked the launch of my independent career as an artist, that song is completely uniquely me. I was never playing anything like Neon Dreams or or On the Road or anything like that. So the amount of effort that it took just to like stay afloat, being an independent creative artist is a completely different bag of worms, completely different animal than it does being a club day musician and just kind of getting paid by booking agents. Yeah, come to this event and play, jam, whatever, jam out. It's sort of like a trade-off between, okay, do I want to be creative and struggle as a creative artist, or do I want to be less creative and just sort of, be told what to do, but like have an easy paycheck? Felt like I kind of needed to try something different. So
I
I
feel
totally diverted from what you were asking about, but I just kind of, I don't know, it was a
no, no, no,
natural
no, no, no.
segue.
No, you're good, and I mean, I think that's really beautiful, and I think it's something that we as artists kind of forget. We have choice with our creativity. To be an artist and to make a career. Have finances that are coming in. That you're able to do this on on a day-to-day basis. This is your living. But at the same time, you're able to have that creative flow. Like I said earlier, do you want to be that person that's stuck in the same joint in the Lower East Side for 10 years? I mean, or do you want to go out of the box a little? Do you want to try something different? Want to try something that will inspire something in you and maybe will give you another avenue of income that you never even realized before that was possible?
Yeah. So, that's a risk that I chose to take. I could have just stayed in the same place and continue to be booked and get busier and busier. But first of all, the pay cap was there, and that was pretty apparent to me. And again, just like basically the boredom. It's ironic that I'm saying boredom because the very nature of what I do, what I did since 2001, is like get up there on stage and rock out and have a good time. But I don't know. I don't know why I think
You're
this way. I
not
just feel like I need more.
you're not the only Slash, he talked about this. I was watching the documentary a few years ago, and he said that he went through a really horrible period. I mean, think Slash, incredible guitar player. He went through a really horrible depression because he didn't feel creative. He didn't feel that he was going where he did, and in the mid 2000s, he switched things up and he started making his own creations and riffs. And
Hmm.
I mean, it's fucking Slash. The guy's a legend, but he had his moment too. You know, each one of us have those moments. And I think that they're there, just like you said, to maybe help us not stay comfortable, but sometimes get out of our comfort levels a little bit, open up, see it a different way, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, we got one life to live, and
Oh, yeah.
I just think I saw this risk as being like, okay, if I screw up, if I fail, I can always go back to where I was. Of course, I've never really made an effort to go back to where I was, and I thought it would be really easy to. Sorry, I gotta fix what I just said because that's not true. When I was very sick about 9 years ago, about 8 9 years ago, I think I was completely out of the business, and I had to switch careers. But when I regained my strength and I was able to play the instrument again, which wasn't supposed to happen, I tried to get my foot back in the business. I was thinking this is going to be easy as cake because I was literally at the top. And it was hard as hell. It took a couple of years for me to really like build, rebuild the reputation, rebuild the connections, and like I was reaching out to the agents that were booking me like crazy like a few years prior. And then I realized, okay, these guys didn't really have loyalty to me. They were riding off of my reputation, and that helped me with a very new perspective on what it means to be an artist. And it actually was probably a blessing in disguise because it made me realize, okay, you know what? I don't need to work for a booking agent that pretends to be incentivized alone, just be solely interested in booking me because they've got a good relationship with me. I'm thrilled now that I know the truth. These booking agents were booking me because I was being requested. It wasn't clear, but now I know, because if they had a different relationship with me, if they knew that, like, if they really truly felt that I was an asset to them, just solely through performance, as a performer, and it wasn't just about me being requested, they would have just booked me like that, and they didn't. So kind of shed some significant insight, and it made me realize that, okay, I'm not going to go down that path anymore. I'm going to invest in myself as opposed to into them. So
I feel
I never talked about this before.
no, and it's good that you bring it up because it's something that has been taken advantage of artists for a very long time. I feel that artists can understand artists. We can understand our pain, we can understand our trauma, we can understand our love and our passion for our creations and what we do. But when you have somebody, and again, there's nothing wrong. There are people that are great at accounting. There are people that are great at marketing. That's their passion in life. That's what they do really well. But you're not an artist. You're a marketer. You're a booker. You know, your job is to be the best person at getting somebody on the stage and wowing the audience and having a great night and getting your paycheck. So there's an indifference over here. How are you supposed to connect with somebody like that and express your work and creativity to somebody that just views it as a dollar sign?
Yeah. Well, that's part of what led me away from it, because, and it's something I struggle with even today, because on one hand, I need to pay the bills. On the other hand, I need to be creative. Otherwise, it's like soul crushing work.
Right.
But I want to speak to the Slash thing. It was really interesting that you brought that up, because he sort of popped up in my feed different points. I
love Slash.
Recently. Yeah, he's been collaborating with some vocalists. And I'm thrilled that he doesn't sing, right? And he just plays guitar, solely guitar, right? So that makes me so happy as an
guitar, and I think he plays bass. I'll check this. Keep going.
You know, what comes to mind is Joe Satriani. He's an instrumentalist.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Over the 80s and 90s. And he was somebody I always sort of always admired, because he's not a singer, because he's not a lyricist. And the industry is literally all about vocalists, singers. Like, and I get it. I understand people want to be able to sing the lyrics.
Guitar only.
I'm partial towards instrumentalism because of, what I do. And I think that I just think that there should be a little more attention paid. I'm not saying that the industry should be all about instrumentalists and not vocalists. I just think that there should be more instrumentalists at the table. It's sort of like within politics.
It's like take Ramones. People forget that without Johnny Ramone and without Mickey Ramone, drummer, guitarist, people forget kind of the beauty about music is not always the person that's singing. It's sometimes the music and the soul that comes from it. You know what I mean?
As an instrumentalist, I do.
Yeah. And I look forward to that in music. A lot of people don't realize, like, oh my God, like, to tell you honestly, like, the truth, if I meet, like, a band, I'd rather meet the instrumentalist than the lead singer. Because they're a lot more fun to hang out with, to be honest.
I'm assuming you're an instrumentalist.
Yeah, I mean, I play guitar, and I sometimes, like, have where I make songs, but I sometimes just love creating riffs and rhythms, progressions, and just see where it takes me. Words are beautiful, but sometimes you don't need words for communication. Sometimes you need emotion, feeling, ambiance. That's how you connect.
Yeah, amen to that. I don't always like telling people what to think or what to do or the message.
It's my perspective completely. Like, you can take it as any way you want, but yeah, I agree with you.
It's like, use the general idea and interpret it and apply it to your life, but just be inspired and make it a good thing. Make it a positive thing in your life, and that's really just my agenda. So,
yeah, and it's also, if you want to, like, walk me through this, because I'm actually curious, like, when you're putting together your chords on your instrument, just the thought process that's going into your head, just think about that. You're putting together this piece. It's kind of like you're making something in the process, and it's so beautiful. Just to think that is a process that every single instrumentalist goes through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the melody comes first for me, even when I'm writing songs that have lyrics. But maybe that'll change. That's just where I'm at right now. I've been focusing on instrumental music for the most part, but this past year I've been collaborating with like vocalists, like like Porter Singer, for instance, a couple other vocalists. I don't want to mention yet, but known vocalists that I'm very excited to share with the world very soon.
That's great. Collaboration is awesome. This is my, like, just little thought. One of the very first person to ever create the perfect kind of way of collaboration for artists was Andy Warhol. Because he realized a very simple thing, that we do this with social media now. How do you get artists to inspire other artists? You take other artists to a comedy show. You take an artist to opera houses. You take artists to a place where people are performing. You bring people together and they start talking. What you're doing is, when you're working with these singers, these creators, you're taking your work and they're bringing their work, and then you're talking about it and you're creating something together. Now you just added to yourself this experience with this other person, their own thought process, their own way of creating, and bringing that together with your own creation. It's so freaking simple, but yet so complicated.
Collaborations, are exactly that. They are so simple, but they're so complicated. I have tried quite a few times over the last couple of years to collaborate with artists that should have been really, like, it should have just been a real quick, here's the track, lay it down. Like, we work together, like, just on one song. Like, it's literally like it's virtually no effort, and it doesn't cost you anything except for, like, maybe an hour. Who cares? It's like, and you get your return. But artists are proud. And, I mean, that being said, I've rejected a number of offers for collaborations, but I don't know. I don't find myself to be as picky as a number of artists that we're not talking all that big, just like, talented, and like, what do you have to lose? Like, you really have to stick to your exact genre. You can't pivot a little bit to the right or a little to the left. If people enjoy your music, and you play classical, for instance, and you're a cellist, what's a little bit of like dance cello going to kill your audience? You think you're going to lose people? It's just, people are silly, very idealistic, and I don't know. It's
I
always a process.
there's a new thing now that I've noticed in clubs, especially out here in Florida. I'm going. It's kind of fun. They're taking disco. So this is a new thing. They take disco and they mix it with EDM. So it is so funny to just watch these teenagers, like 16, 17-year-olds, like screaming out a Donna Summer song, and you're just like, they were like born in like the like mid 2000s, and they know who Donna Summer is. It's just hilarious. But it's, again, like you said, like, just go for it. Just, what do you got to lose? If you just try to go a little bit this way, or try to go a little bit that way, try to connect maybe this way, just being a little bit lenient and being less tough on yourself, and less, being just so stiff, being like, no, I would loosen up, go with the flow,
Yeah.
man. It's okay. It's like not that big of a deal.
Yeah. There's a lot of rigidity out there that I've noticed on talented people. Like, I don't know if it's an artistic pride. I guess that rigidity exists in any sort of workplace. I mean, I've worked in other, before I went back to music. I was in the thick of education, and I met all sorts of inflexible people. But I also met some really flexible, really wonderful people. You just have different personalities. I find that, like, disproportionately more that is in the music industry. And I think because people have take so much pride in their music. I take a lot of pride in my music, but, a collab's a collab. So if it's decent music, why not? So I'm hoping to score a whole lot more of those in the next few months, because it's great ride. The ones that I have successfully collaborated with, it's just been so rewarding, And
it really opens up to, it also opens up to this new dynamic, and I really try to keep this type of philosophy of open-mindedness. And one thing, you realize you have one life. You get one life. Whether it happens after you live, I don't feel like that matters for myself. I feel like what matters the most is experiences and the things that you learn along the way. With a career such as yourself, I mean, you said about 15 years? Is it more than that?
Oh, well, yeah, career wise, 20,
Damn.
21 years.
21-year career.
Professional. Yeah, on and off. But over the last 7 years, it's been like 100% non, full time. So, I mean,
there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of things you can learn along the way in that amount of time. And you can really give that over with the message to your audience, the people that you work with. I really like that attitude that you took. You eventually came down the road and you're like, am I going to basically sell my soul at the crossroads? Or am I going to do something for myself and try to figure out a way of making this financially beneficial for myself and keep me afloat? It all comes down to, like, where are you? Like, where do you, like, I've had to ask myself this so many times, even with this podcast, with any project that you do. It's so heavy.
Yeah, it's as much of an easy time as I was explaining that I have had starting out music in 2001, professionally getting paid to do that stuff on a part-time basis and then a full-time basis. Being an independent artist is really, really difficult, but it's that much less difficult if you truly enjoy it. As they say, you never work a day in your life if you really love what you do. So, but I choose the harder path. I got to wear a lot of hats. You got to have a business sort of acumen, business frame of mind. and you can't really depend on people. I mean, even if you sign a contract with a major label, I know a number of artists who have. You're not living the high life. There are a very small percentage of people that succeed, even those who get signed. I mean, you look at like you can think of it as getting signed to the NFL or the NBA or something like that, and what percentage of those success? What percentage of those? What percentage of those people, the football players, basketball players, are actually achieving real success? Very, very small percentage,
Yeah,
like 1%.
yeah, you don't really think about. And the crazy part is there are some people that are super famous. I mean, we're talking about like millions of followers on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. And guess what? They're broke as fuck. They're poorer than most people. You know why? Because they sign these contracts, and
Yeah,
they're only getting like, I remember reading somewhere it's like, okay, this is how I understand it. You probably can process this better than I can. They basically make a deal where they give you $1 million, but they have to have some way of having assets if you don't make those $1 million. So they take your $1 million and they put it towards like collateral. So, and then because it has
360 deals,
yes,
they're nasty. Yeah, I've been in these like funnels, these like major label funnels, indie artists that are connected to the major labels. They fund you to the major labels. They just like bring people in and then they like automate these messages like targeting you, making you feel like they really want you, and then you got to pay to do this and to do that and to attend the webinar, and you got to pay this to like get an online like interview or meeting with like a manager. It's like a whole, I don't want to say Ponzi scheme because it's not like, it's not illegal underground work. It's just,
no,
it's just a little like kind of just feels kind of
shady,
dirty, Yeah.
shady.
Yeah. Cause especially cause you're earning and you're profiting off of people that are really struggling. I mean, a lot of struggling artists that are kind of hoping to make it. And you gotta, I'm just I feel more comfortable kind of doing things on my own as much as possible, as difficult as it is, because I can control everything. If I screw up, it's not because somebody else screwed me up; it's because I screwed me up. So.
This is kind of the thing where I kind of love about Podmatch, where it's allowed me as a podcaster to talk to people like you. Before I would have had to jump through loopholes and this agency and that manager and this person and that person. I'm like, what? I have to deal with some of that shit to get some guests on. Like I have had some people I've been trying to get on where it's, oh my God, how many fucking loopholes do I have to go through and reschedulings do I have to deal with?
Oh yeah.
It's sometimes so nice to just be able to talk to the person directly, and be able to have that direct experience and that position, because how are we supposed to grow as people if we can't have conversations with one another? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, when there's a lot of money at stake and
I know.
a lot of investors and a lot of stakeholders in the product, which is the singer or the headliner. The headliner's first of all owned, so the headliner doesn't own their creativity necessarily or their anything else. So
They're just a label. They're a label. That's pretty much what the marker ticket is. They're representing that brand 100%.
Yeah, which has got to be a little bit soul sucking in itself, because like while you get to create music and people are like screaming your name, you don't get to decide where to go and what to do. And I mean, you watch these interviews of Michael Jackson. He was depressed going on tour. He hated touring because the guy was owned. He was owned up the butt. Like he was obviously had a lot of other problems, but yeah, and I know a number of like celebrity singers that are owned. I used to think like, oh yeah, I'd love to be that, but nah, it's a lot of stress. So that's kind of nice. There's pros and cons to being in my position, but that's one of the pros.
Yeah, and I love that you bring that up, because again, it's an honest perspective. The thing is, we have to be realistic as people, and if you're not open to being able to see that there are pros and cons, because look, like, no situation is going to work perfectly. There's always going to be consequences to your actions. There's always going to be an issue and a problem that you eventually going to have to deal with. But the ultimate goal is, right, if you're passionate about what you're doing and this is what you want to do and you want to work towards, again, like, the only thing that's stopping you, I feel, is yourself, you as an individual.
Yeah. So just sort of expanding to that, upon that, I just wanted to say that the person who has the
Hey, it's Dave, and I quickly just wanted to jump in and say, if you've been enjoying the podcast and enjoying this episode, if you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that'll be so greatly appreciated. Because here's the thing, someone might read that review and make the choice if they want to listen to the podcast. You get to help grow this podcast with us. How fucking cool is that? Let's jump back to today's episode.
decision making, whether they're signed to a label or whether they're independent, is the person who knows their customers and knows how to reach their customers. And I'm pretty sure, well, I can't say anything for sure, but the labels, they own the customers. I don't know how much the headliners or the artists even have access to the customers. Obviously there's social media, but if you got the audience, that's pretty much, people are going to follow your lead. Like, there's nothing a manager is going to take away from you if you own
Right.
the audience. The audience is coming to you. So that's pretty much, they're the most important ingredient in the musical game. So I take my fans, my listeners, my supporters very seriously whenever they message me. I take it very seriously because they are literally the bread and butter. They are the core of and they're my inspiration too. So
I love
and they
comment.
don't have to be listening to me. They can be doing anything else. There's millions of other forms of media that they can be consuming, and they decide to connect with me. And so I'm deeply touched and I'm honored, and I just hope that I can keep making music for them.
It's a
So
it's a really beautiful way of connecting with your audience. I mean, I try to take that standpoint for myself. I mean, I try to do that with, especially with guests that I have on, because I feel that in many ways you're opening up people to something that maybe I'm passionate about, maybe something that somebody else is passionate about, maybe inspiring somebody. You never know. You never know who's listening. But the greatest thing that you can be is having people that, like, love what you're doing. They want to connect to it. They're like, oh my god, like, when are you doing your next thing? And they know that they connect to you, and they know that there's that feeling of openness. Those artists where people, they have an audience, but if you ask anybody that's a fan of theirs, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, I love that person, but they were completely closed.
yeah, mostly because, or a lot of artists, they don't have the time or the energy
No.
to deal with
Oh no.
their fans.
Uh-uh.
So that's sort of like it's a trade-off. I'm not sure why people feel the need to like post under a post of a celebrity that has like gazillion comments. The celebrity's never gonna respond to you. They're not gonna even look at your comment, but people do it anyway. I don't know.
It's kind of odd because when you're on social media, you have millions of followers. How you're supposed to connect to those people? I mean, it's impossible. There's really no way of actually, like, connecting to those people.
I don't really see the point. I don't, but I guess people get excited by like Taylor Swift, they want to connect with her, but it's like 1 in a million that's actually able to. How many people is she DMing? I'm not sure how that works.
I know. And you remember, like I said earlier, a lot of the times, especially like when you're dealing with certain people, you have to go through agencies.
Yeah.
You can't necessarily talk to the person directly. And a lot of the times, unfortunately, whoever you're speaking with, they're very choosy and picky. So they might not even tell the person that they're representing that they're doing this. So you may like be going on this string. I heard this from somebody that told me this. Where they were dealing with an interview. I'm not going to give out any names, and the person that they were dealing with never told the person they were actually interviewing, and kept on this string for like 4 or 5 months. So the way he figured it out was like he was getting like, kind of the generic responses. You know what I'm talking about? Like, oh, sorry, this and this happened. Oh, I'm sorry, we have to yada yada. That kind of
Mhm.
that kind of crap.
Mhm.
And he was like, what's going on over here? This is like copy and paste, copy and paste. So he was able to reach out to her producer directly. He got the email to the producer, and I find it like for myself, this freaks me out a lot. Where it just worries me of like why do we need so much tape? Why do we need to close ourselves? I get it, like there's security and there's crazy people out there, but again, like if we want to be able to connect and grow as a community as artists, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, a lot of the red tape is money,
Hmm.
money related stuff.
Oh my,
So
everything's money.
want control, yeah. But I honestly I feel kind of bad for Taylor Swift. I don't think I'd want to be in a position where she can't go outside without the paparazzi chasing her down the street. I mean, what kind of life is that?
I
Yeah,
know.
some people want it. There's definitely a downside. You can live in your 50-acre estate, but doesn't it get a little lonely if you can't just go out in the public and just be yourself?
People forget that money, as wonderful as it is, when you become financially stable, there's still other things you have to deal with. Like life doesn't just turn into utopia paradise the second you become financially stable. You know, my brother gave me this advice, because he became financially stable for himself. He's like, don't think your problems get solved just because of money. It's not the only issues you're going to run in with in your life. There's a lot of other things that you're going to deal with.
For sure. Money is just the tip of the iceberg. Lots of happy people that don't have money anyway.
What kind of thing? I mean, if you want to open up about this, you can. What are some of the things that you've had to deal with besides money for yourself as an artist?
So money has been a struggle over the years for me as an artist. Support. I mean, I've had bigger bills than other people. I'm not living in an apartment. I have a family to support. I have a house I gotta manage.
Right.
So and I got bills. So it's not like so I have to be earning a full-time income as a musician for this to work, to be in this space, to have a studio, that type of stuff. But struggles beyond that include like sort of the lack of 9 to 5ness of my career. I'm a workaholic. I'm working around the clock, producing, collaborating, outperforming at night. So I do some day events, but it's not so conducive to raising a family and to having a spouse. But I make sure that it works because it's important to me. I know a lot of people where it has not worked. Maybe that's because that's their choice. I don't think that doing what I do means that you can't be happy with a family. It just means that it's a little bit more of a struggle.
Yeah, and I love that I love that you bring this up because I think it's really beautiful when artists are able to create a family like you did. It really shows that no, it's not just about drugs and girls and sex and TV. You can have a family, you can have kids, you can have a house, and be a professional artist.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the drug, sex, and that stuff like that sells, and I
I
think that
know.
that's why it's been in the mainstream since time immemorial. I've seen a number of artists that don't represent that have succeeded and thrived, and for that very reason, I continue to pursue what the independent artist track because I realize, okay, this is doable. I don't have to be fucked up in the head in order to in order to be able to earn a living and doing what I love. It frustrates me to no end that again, those people are those are the majority pushed by the industry because again, it sells. Every day I work against that to try to sort of change the norm, the mainstream in my own little microcosm. Not so easy, but definitely trying.
It's it's like our own little worlds, you know? Each one of us, each and every one of us has our own little earth.
Yeah. Well, the music industry is changing as more independent artists find ways of earning a living, and that's going to reshape the the top 40s if it hasn't already. So
I think also artificial intelligence will be a really great tool. I know people are terrified of it, but I think it's going to be a
oh
really
yeah,
I think it's going to be a great tool for artists because think about it, like in 20 years, if you have an artist that's struggling and trying to figure out something in their head, they can go into an artificial intelligence hub, on their computer and like, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to put this together. And then they can have this artificial intelligence help them try to put it together and give them different ideas of what they can do. You may look at that as cheating, but guess what? I'm an artist and I use tracing paper. It's not cheating. It's another way of creating. I think that's beautiful. I think.
Oh, did you say drawing? You draw?
Yes, I do. I'm an artist.
That's funny. You said tracing paper because this I saw like an ad a couple days ago. I forgot the name of the unit, but it's literally a unit where there's like this prism where there's this a mirror that reflects. I guess for instance, if you're drawing somebody's face, you're able to look. I'm really not describing this very well. I know what
you're talking
in two different directions.
Yes,
and you're able to trace the person's face on the paper below while you're looking through this projection. And that's something that apparently like Leonardo da Vinci used, or so it's cheating, but it's okay, whatever.
It's not cheating. Like people gave shit for when I forgot what they call that shit, where they used to put in like parts of songs. Like Vanilla Ice did that with Under Pressure. In one of
the riff?
Yeah. And countless times, but again, I just feel as artists, we learn from one another. We get spontaneous and creative, and we just want to see what we can make out of it. I don't like to, people are like, oh, that's cheating. It's not, individual. Or I'm like, bro, please.
Yeah, people obviously, this is going back to what we were talking about. People need to lighten up a little bit.
Oh yeah,
everybody's afraid of like losing work to whatever, somebody who knows how to game the system. We all use tools, and we're all going to continue to use tools. And people who choose not to use them will be left behind inevitably. People have chosen not to use social media, for better or for worse. Many people have been left behind. Their businesses have failed. So it's sort of like it's just the name of the game. You can't get around in a horse and buggy anymore. You got to drive a car. Otherwise you can't pay the bills.
Right.
And we're all going to have to use AI inevitably in the next few years, if not now. Otherwise we will not be able to keep up.
Yeah, and I think especially for the artist industry, I think the more that you fight it, the worse it's going to be. I think that it needs to be embraced, especially with the artist community, because I feel it's going to help artists, from any type of level to be able to create things, and it also opens up new types of artists. Did you ever think about an artist that uses artificial intelligence singularities, so uses the program itself algorithm to create things out of feelings like sounds?
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about this. Like you can take a vibration and it can create. Mm-hmm. There are people that are really good at this. They know exactly what to input. That is a form of creativity and being an artist. Like this is the new age that we're entering, and I'm excited.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you are. I'm excited. I'm a little fearful also, but I'm sure that I can't imagine people are just going to be sitting home and unable to earn a living. I'm sure that there's going to be changes that will just adjustments made, the government level, at the AI level, so that people will continue to earn a living. It's just going to be a very different ball game. And I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I guess we will see.
Let's embrace the future.
If there is one.
It depends on who gets elected next.
Oh my God. I've been keeping up with that stuff, and it's just like, first off, I make this joke all the time where I'm like, look, okay, I wasn't alive in the 60s and I couldn't vote for a Kennedy. All right. It is it's the 2000s, and just for shits and giggles, just like we vote for Mickey Mouse every 4 years, I vote for but the thing that I always inspire and linger to is a person of thought, sane of mind, and openness. Like, the second that somebody's like that, I'm like, I want to hear what they have to say. I've been just blown away.
I don't think it takes much. It doesn't take much for these presidential candidates to just be reasonable, in my opinion. But just a lot of the candidates, and obviously our current president and our previous president, you speak with anybody, and most people are just really dissatisfied with the options. And I don't mean to make this a political conversation.
Oh no, it's cool.
I'm just wondering how long it's going to take for like a candidate to be selected that the people actually want to be voted into office, as opposed to the situation where people just feel like, okay, like we have no control up there at the top because the bigger, more powerful elements at play are choosing who the candidate should be.
See, this is the thing though about RFK that I have a fear of. See, honestly, if we look at our country in the past 100 years, one of the most influential people that really changed our country was JFK. In his short period, he really opened up and changed a lot of things in this country. And I really feel the same way with RFK, because this man has so much to lose. Like, he could be assassinated just like his father did, and so just like his uncle did. 100%. There is a very high chance he will be assassinated. And I'm not like threatening the guy, but that's just a reality for somebody like him.
Apparently, RFK Sr., the one who got assassinated, from what I heard on the radio recently, he got assassinated because he had mentioned that he wanted to reopen an investigation on JFK, his brother's assassination, which totally makes sense to me. But what calls into question is, who is it that set into motion to assassinate him? And that's what I want to know. And I don't know why there are all these like,
well, JFK
assumptions.
wanted to get rid of the Central Intelligence. He wanted
the CIA.
Yeah, he wanted to eradicate.
Why did he want to? Why?
Yeah, because he believed that
they were corrupt.
Yes, he genuinely.
Can you imagine how corrupt they are now? If they were corrupt back then, that's been like 50 years of build up of corruption. That's all I watch. Sorry to interrupt you. That's all I watch with my wife at night. We're watching CIA this, CIA that, like just Marvel movies based off the CIA. Just like pretty much everything built around how fascinating it is that CIA is corrupt from the inside out.
Just like they created the Charles. By the way, Charles Manson was created by the CIA.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, he was brought in. He was taught, and they created this whole thing to basically break down. I watched this on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh my God, that's
crazy.
Insane. Oh my, where'd you watch it?
On Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Joe Rogan Experience, bro. Every day, every fucking day.
He's a legend, Joe.
Oh my God, he is such a fucking. But the thing is, and I kind of agree with JFK. He said this so beautifully. Yeah, we need to be able to protect ourselves, but why can't the people know? What are you so scared of the people knowing? Like, what are you scared of us as human beings, like, knowing about, I don't know about warfare that's going on in other countries while we have people here that are starving, that we have horrible healthcare in this country. Hello? Is anybody
Well, you
gonna?
could look at the Pentagon. You could ask that question. I mean, all these agencies are corrupt. And granted, we're lucky that there's a somewhat of a balance of power, but it's one like the faith that the American people have in the FDA, the USDA, the CIA, the FBI, like all of these industries. It's like it's dropped from like 70% to like 30-40%. It's a joke.
Let me
Like why? They're going to get dissolved. That's why they're afraid. That's what they're afraid of.
I was born in 1999, so I wasn't alive when the World Trade Center came down, and that's when they created the Homeland Security and the TSA. And I remember as a kid, because I grew up in the early 2000s, when we went to the airports, the gradual changes that went on in the airports, I remember them slowly. They went from you couldn't take water anymore on the plane to you couldn't bring plastic utensils. Then you couldn't do this. And I just remember as a kid looking at my mom and I'm like, what's going on? And she was like, she couldn't explain it. Like everyone was confused. That's how it was. Like people were so confused for so long. We forget this shit. I remember this as a kid, but like we forget how confused and conflicted we were 20 years ago. Like
I want to tell you, if you go back to the Middle East conflict, it's funny how this has turned into a political show.
This is great. Fucking A.
The 50s. I love hater comments. I look forward to them. In the 50s, that was, believe it or not, and it's not touted as such, but if you really like dig in, I was kind of researching like the 6-Day War in Israel and like the 50s and the 60s, like the whole conflict between the Syrians, Lebanon, Egypt, blah, blah, blah. These were all, those are proxy wars back then. Like we've been doing proxy wars in the last 20, 30 years, like the Gulf War and like all these wars.
Afghanistan War, yeah.
The Korean War, whatever, all that stuff. And yeah, this has been a game that's been played, not so much World War II. That's sort of like known as a very kind of a different animal. But subsequent to that, it's just like...
Just to let you know, by the way, World War II could have been completely avoided. I watched the whole documentary on this.
Interesting.
Yes.
Who was the documentary presented by?
It was on Netflix. I had a friend of mine that sent it to me a long time ago. It's about a year or so ago. I forgot the title. I'm gonna check my basically, in short, it kind of broke down the war. It's like one of those like the series where like it kind of, you probably see this on Netflix. It basically breaks down the war by years. So like 1930 to 1935. That's the first episode. And then 1935 to 1939. What's really interesting was they knew what was going on. Because if you...
In Nazi Germany, you're saying?
Correct. Because they were printing papers in the United States in the early 30s. So everyone in the United States knew what was going on in Germany. And the thing is Americans were being warned by Europeans and the UK already in the mid-30s that there's conflicts going on. This was just complete ignorance for 10 years. That's what you learn. Well, complete ignorance for 10 years. Just complete like, oh, it's okay. It's going to blow over.
Well, I think there was a hope that it was going to blow over because everybody wants to avoid a third world war or whatever. China, there's right. Heat right now. There's this, there's North Korea, there's Russia. Like nobody wants to go get into a nuclear war situation. So if there's stuff brewing, people are going to try to find alternatives, but to try to appease. But if it's not happening, it's not happening. But back to my point of like the 50s and 60s. Proxy wars have been around for a very long time, and it's just sort of like been capitalists versus the communists. Like that's really been the common denominator, the common theme for the last 50, 60 years, manifested in different ways through these poor countries like Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, and Middle East, and like everybody fighting for like oil and resources. And I've not spent a lot of time, learning about geopolitics, but the little that I do know, it's not. You don't have to dig too deep to see the hand at play with the proxy wars.
This all affects us in many ways because you're talking about the 50s and the 60s. Look what they did to the artist community with the Vietnam War. They
Well, that
tried
does, yes.
they tried to destroy as much as they possibly could. And guess what? That's never
That
going to
was
happen.
Nixon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Nixon. There are just so many movies that
Rotten
have
hell,
been.
that piece of shit.
Well, yeah, there's not. It's funny, and you're saying that as somebody who was born in 2000. It's like really, like the media has just taken a dump all over him. He left such a trail of like
We
corruption.
have substance one with psychedelics and cannabis. I'm a cannabis user and I've been using it for 4 years and I have it
He was
medically.
incarcerating people for generations. You're
And
saying
the only reason why, and the person, one of his right-hand
pharmaceutical
man,
industry.
yeah, said this in 1977. He said the only reason why that they created the whole Schedule 1, the whole war on drugs, was to separate the Black and Latin community so they can be able to enlist them during the Vietnam War and has less conflict because of all the rioting that was going on and people coming together from different communities. They created the drug war to divide this country.
They wanted the Black. Wait, was this recorded verbatim by?
This was found in documents in regards to conversation.
That Nixon's right-hand man wanted the Blacks and Hispanics to enlist in the war, the Vietnam War.
That's what they wanted in administration. And they felt that if they did this, Nixon would have a better chance of winning. So this was around the time, 1970, they passed this law, and they're not doing this because they care. It's just because Nixon wants to win his next election as president. Even though this is almost 50 years ago, look where we are right now. I'm like, bro, how many times do Americans and us as individuals have to be smacked in the face to realize, this is really unfair? They're trying to divide people by gender, by sexuality.
Yeah, they're still trying to divide.
Yeah, now we have to represent who we are. I have to fucking Jew, gay, and
yeah.
I'm like, no. Why can't we just be just people like we're doing right now here? It doesn't matter who we are or where we come from. Our experiences. What matters is that we're here now, and we're here coming together for a reason and a purpose.
Yeah, the topic of of race, of religion, this stuff is constantly brought up in the media by politicians, both sides. They're both guilty, and it pisses me off to no end because they are riding off of that tension in order to gain power, in order to pander to their base, and it's unconscionable. It's really just it's. I'm hoping it'll end at some point. That people will catch on. But I don't know, because it may just be the same story repeated from administration to administration, because it's a game that works. This is how you get people excited to vote for the next candidate. The right and the left are cut from the same cloth. Most people don't see it that way. That's how I see it. And they both pander to their base, and they both are looking for power. And granted, they both represent different nuanced perspectives, but they are cut from the same cloth, and it makes me wonder if there shouldn't be a third party.
I have this thought of a what if. What if RFK did win? What if he did win and become... Truthfully, I don't want to, pick sides or anything, but his chance of winning is next to nothing. He's not going to win. But if he did,
what would happen, you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a great question.
No clue. I have no clue. But the more, as people are more disenchanted, it boils down to jobs and income, really. If the economy is doing well, people don't care. You put in whatever shithead you want, into the presidency.
That's his focus is economy and welfare.
That's everybody's focus. It's the senator's focus. It's the legislature's focus, because that literally keeps people calm and relaxed. As the economy drops, tanks, then there's blood in the streets, and then people start taking sides, and that's
Right.
what happens
Conflict.
historically.
Right.
Yeah, conflict. Yep. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping that we can just continue to ride out the wave with these corrupt politicians, because nobody's going to feel the need to change anything, because people are going to be earning a living. I'm hoping things can be better than that, but that's
hence the
kind of what I'm expecting.
hence the Great Recession in 2030. Be prepared. It's going to be a bumpy. I
You think it's going to be a bumpy ride?
It's going to be a bumpy ride, 100%. I mean, I feel that there are going to be a lot of negatives that come out of it, but I think there's a lot of pluses. I mean, we've talked already for past hour or so and about the progression of artists. I mean, you starting your career in the early 2000s. I mean, now for people that are having careers now for the next 10, 15, 20 years and so on. How are things going to be for independent artists? What is the world going to look like for an independent artist when there's a Great Recession in 2030? Maybe it's going to be all gloom, or maybe we'll be the ones to entertain people while they're miserable.
I don't know. I'm hoping the latter, but I think that inflation is going to play the biggest role. I mean, the income my father had to earn in order to raise 4 kids, really just in the 80s and 90s, is a very small percent, like 50% of what we have to earn now. And we have to maybe a third. I mean, to raise a family here out in Long Island, you need triple. So probably even more. So especially to send them to private school, but it's the inflation is playing the major role.
It pisses me off more than anything when my parents reminded me of my dad bought a camper, like a 73 camper in 70, I think 77, for $300. And then
let me plug in my laptop. Give me 1 second.
Hold on 1 second. Let's see. So and then on top of that, my parents bought they bought a house for $32,000 in 1980. I'm like, why can't I buy a brand new house for $30,000? Okay,
that's not even the down payment. Now you need $100,000, and then you got to paying like, I mean, homes on Long Island are like if you don't want to live in a hole in the wall with mold, you got to be spending like $500,000, and you win the lottery, you win $1 million. What does that get you? It's just inflation's out of control. It's really just out of control.
It really is. And the thing that can be very struggling is the struggle itself. Being like, oh my God, this is so hard. This is so difficult. But you touched on like starting from little things. Being able to, I think, be able to slowly progress and grow and figure out what you need and what you don't need. And it's just so slow. I feel like wisdom and learning is just, you get smacked in the face, you fall, you trip, you pick yourself up. And you do
no way to do it.
Yeah. The grind.
Got to pick yourself up. Yep. Well, I enjoy the grind.
What has it been for you now? I mean, like, where are you currently present as an artist?
You're saying in terms of what I'm doing, performance wise?
Yeah.
So I'm doing a blend of things, pretty eclectic, just because I enjoy not doing one specific thing. So I'm doing, live performances, studio work, collaborations, private events, public events, fundraising events, traveling, trying to stay local at different points.
Nice.
Just mixing it up. I enjoy it.
With the locals. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I used to travel like 3 times a month out to LA, and I just loved it. And then it just kind of got old after a while. Just felt like, okay, I don't know how much I need to do it. I mean, but Atlanta, Texas, every couple of weeks.
LAX kind of, you kind of get sick of LAX after going there.
Yeah. I think they upgraded recently, so it's probably a little nicer.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, that's really great. I mean, you're able to get out, and be at venues and be able to perform. What type of audiences are you getting these days? Like, what type of people are coming out?
I mean, it depends on the event. You know,
Okay.
it could be like a few thousand if I have like a proper manager promoter for the event. I'm not doing tour like full tours now where it's like one day after another after another. You know, I'll fly out, do a concert, or do a private event, or do a fundraiser, and then I'll fly back. You know, so one event at a time, kind of thing. Sometimes there'll be 300 people in a room, sometimes 500 people in a room. Just really just depends on what I'm playing.
And
So
you've recorded music yourself, and you've how many albums have you made?
almost two, not a lot. Oh, but I have four in the works right now, so I'm like pumping out maybe a song a month or so. So I have a violin covers album that's done. It's like that's on my website.
Mm-hmm.
About 13 songs. I've got a an original album, Neon Dreams, which is I think at 12 songs. I should probably be releasing that yesterday at this point.
So it's an LP.
No, that's a full album. That's
It's a full album.
yeah. I mean, it's like 12
Oh, you
songs.
said 12. Okay, I didn't hear you. I thought you said 7. I'm sorry.
Yeah, about 12 songs. So that's like 20. That's like 24 in total between the two albums. And then I got a classical album which has like 4 or 5 classical pieces, like full symphonies. And that's, you know, I'll that'll be done probably in like 6 or 7 more symphonies. And then
Ooh.
I got a covers 2 album which is like 8 songs in. So all that stuff is a lot of that stuff is on my merchandise page, on no, my store page. So people can sort of see it
What's your website?
each asherlaub.com/merchandise. Just asherlaub.com.
Okay.
ASHERLAUB.
I really
And
I really
yeah.
like that. You have different so the really cool thing about you is that if like somebody's coming to listen to your music, they have different things that they can find and connect with, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate you noticing that. You know, because
Details, my dude.
yeah, I love EDM, I love electronic, I love instrumental, I love dance music, but I also love classical and I love cinematic music. So I kind of do both, and I'm hoping that more and more of my fans like. I find that a lot of my fans like either love one or the other, and I'm a little sad about that. But you know, I just sort of use my list, and I just send out messages to anybody who's interested, and
You need
my mailing list.
my dude, you need more stoners. That's the
Yeah,
because like
it's good.
because like I can tell you personally, I can go from I can go from like electronic metal to Aretha Franklin to Mama Cass to you know, like Joplin. I can just like go through it
Yeah.
because just the enhancement of sound. The thing is, especially like when you're on a certain high and you listen to a violin, that shrill. Oh my, I could sit in a chair and listen to that shit for like 20 minutes. It's just beautiful. You can hear like the
Yeah.
strumming going back and forth, like that wavelength.
Well,
Oh,
please send more stoners my way.
bro, right here. You know, like this is a stoner podcast. Like, listen, you gotta check out Asher Laub. Like, this is next level,
God
100%.
bless. Thank you. Thank you. No,
Yeah,
it's you know, I'm not like, I don't have the stoner persona per se, so I can see people like not necessarily associating with me like through my image, because it's kind of like a clean type of
yeah, but
thing.
like
But
Alice
it's
Cooper is like goth and dark, but he's this super like conservative, shrill little like guy that's
yeah,
you know um I think it's all about like what you're representing in your music, you know, and who you're connecting with. You know, we were talking about this earlier with you were saying about like with audience, now like you're able to connect and find your audience and message and interact. Yeah, that's where you find it.
it that's that's the meaning that I was seeking, and that led me away from like the much easier path of just having booking agents just pay me to show up at events. So yeah, like I'd rather earn a living, the same living, playing to stoners, if you will, like people that are deeply in love with the music that I'm producing, like care about the messages, care about the melodies, as opposed to like are just there for their wallets or to network or to. It's not about as much about the music, you know. And that's all the like I would take a $10,000 cut, you know, in my income to have that deeply meaningful experience of being supported by people that really they buy the albums as opposed to just like, you know, rich as hell and just thinking about themselves and their wallets.
Yeah, it's kind of weird when you run across artists that just have singles. You know, nothing wrong, like it's great, but there's sometimes nice of having like complete pieces. I have a vinyl record collection. I have about like 300 and something records. And I have like, you know, my turntable and my speakers, and I sometimes enjoy just like listening to a full album. There's just something just enjoyable about that. I guess kind of in a way it's a way of having your own little personal concert, you know, in your own space, you know, your own way of meditating. And I think that's a really great way to capture people and really be able to create that ambiance with audiences, you know. And
So I guess I gotta release the album now.
shit, bro.
I was thinking, oh, maybe one more song. Nah, I think it's ready. It's like 13 songs in. It's like 13. It's good. It's a good album, and it's time to release it and move to the next one. So
That's good.
yeah,
It's you know,
I'll let you know about it.
I love that, like just jumping from, you know, creating a project and like, okay, I'm gonna put this out there. I'm not ready for this shit. Like I am so scared as an artist. I take years to do things. I have art, like I'm dead serious. I have drawings that I haven't finished in like 4 years. They're just sitting there and I haven't finished them.
Yeah, yeah.
So kudos to you. You know, it's really hard to be creative as an artist, and it's really unique to be that type of artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, you're in a big pool of it's common for people to feel like, oh, you know, it's not perfect. I want, you know, I don't want to have to like live with the product and be unhappy with a little thing here, or a little brushstroke there. I have learned with all my releases that at a point it's 90% good is going to have to be good enough for me. Otherwise, I'll never release the song, and I'll just end up in this endless loop of like, okay, I need to listen to it in my car like 10 more times, make sure that everything's perfect. I'm even with a collaboration I put a significant amount of effort, even money into. I have learned to like sort of, it's almost like a skill from my vantage point. Just, you know, it's not going to be 100% perfect. That's where I'm at right now.
No, and I think that's a really beautiful thing because it really shows a unique side, and not everything in life needs to be perfect.
Yeah, yeah. And it definitely helps to have fans that don't need it to be that way. So,
you know, when you talk about bringing together, like especially when you have an audience and you know you want to connect with people, the thing about bringing people together, it's not what you're offering, but what they're connecting. You know, like I said earlier, like what they're connecting to, what they're finding, you know, whether stoners, punkers, emo, disco jockeys, hipsters, bohemians, you know, bringing all of those people together in just one room and letting them share their thoughts and their stories. I love that.
I think that was Woodstock. And I love how it's my father-in-law. He was at Woodstock, I believe. Pretty sure. Yeah. He talks about it a lot. I'm like, was there any violence? He's like, there was just like women running naked everywhere. Any violence, any rapings, anything? He's like, nothing. Because everybody was just high, stoned. Everybody was just happy. I'm like, and they've been incarcerating these people, like the people who have just been smoking up, getting high, like for breaking up families, throwing dads in jail, like where their kids aren't raised by it. They don't see their dad for like 20 years. Like they've been doing this. Like our government has been doing this. And now all of a sudden it's legal. It's legal. And not only that, it's medicinal. I'm not a smoker, but the idea that families have been ruined transgenerationally over decades is unbelievable to me. Unbelievable. I can't.
I met.
And it's too late to punish these people.
You know, it's funny. I went to Woodstock. I went to that area, and we drove down, and there were like these little shops, and we walked into one of them, and there was this elderly woman that was there. She had like these long braids, and I was just like talking, like, I went up there, and she's really cool, and she's like, yeah, I remember Woodstock. I made those damn peanut butter jelly sandwiches for 2 days. That was exhausting. I was like, what? She's like, what they did was the locals that were in the area, because there were so many people, they didn't know what they were supposed to do. They had a factory that made bread, and there's a peanut factory that wasn't far from that area. So they had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And she was
killing.
Yeah, and she was one of those people there that served, like all these people food for like 2 or 3 days. The thing is, as people, like, try to imagine this. Cannabis is not a miracle drug. It's not going to solve your problems. It's not going to heal your depression. What it does is it opens our minds to something that is so straightforward. Just open yourself up and listen. Listen.
It's funny because I've never gotten a high off of cannabis. I tried a couple times. It actually just gave me anxiety, so I never really got into it.
Oh, it does.
I don't know why. Huh?
It does that. It's called paranoia.
Yeah, I felt weird. I just like my lower coccyx area it hurt, and I just didn't get the same high, and I was upset. Like, I wanted to be like my friends. It's back in high school, but so unfortunately, I didn't get any benefits. But speaking of what you're saying, I mean, just like, you got to throw somebody in jail for that stuff. Oh, come on.
I know.
Jeez.
And I mean, it inspires so much. I can tell you, with the amount of times that I sit and create music, I'm just, and it's not just marijuana. I mean, it's anything. It's just getting your element, it's just finding your groove.
Yeah.
There you go. I threw it in there.
There it is.
I think.
Well, this has been quite the groovy time.
God, this has definitely been motherfucking groovy time. And if you want to check out more of Asher, you can find him at asherlaub.com. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to find more of this podcast, you can find us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Lost the Groove Pod. So, with that, we'll catch you on the next one, my friends. Stay good. All right, I'm going to go. Adios.